So again, this is on page 46, part of that study guide, which is just a lot of review of things that we've done. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of today on. And then we'll kind of focus in on some things on Monday before you have your Unit 1 assessment. All right? So remember that the fraction bar, indicates like a big grouping symbol. So even though there are not parentheses around the top and the bottom, we need to simplify the top, simplify the bottom, down to one number on top, one number on the bottom, and then we can either divide or we can reduce, depending on the numbers. That's right. Give me some backup there. So on the top, we'll do that exponent first. So 5 squared, we've got another 25. And then, of course, next after that, we would want to do the division before we do the addition. So don't be tempted to go just left to right. Addition's going to wait. So that part then becomes 25 plus 5, and then 25 plus 5 is 30. So the top of the fraction is 30, and then we're going to jump in and work to simplify the bottom of the fraction. Which operation, which part of that problem should I do first? So I've got subtraction, I've got division, I've got addition. Of those choices, which comes first? The division, right? We'll have to do the division, right? Because we don't have parentheses, we don't have exponents. Multiply and divide come before add and subtract. So the 12 divided by 4, which would of course be 3. So then I have 7 minus 3 plus 2. And I could work that down, I could work that across. It gets kind of tricky about how you want to show your work with these fractions. And then when it is just addition and subtraction, they are on the same level. Aunt Sally is her name. That's all on one level. So we do not skip over subtraction to go do the addition first. We go left to right in that case. So 7 minus 3 is 4. Then 4 plus 2 is 6. And then we have to remember that, oh yeah, we still have that 30 on the top. So then the 30 divided by 6, final answer, all that for 5. Okay? So all that work shown and could be shown in many different ways. But you need to simplify the top of the fraction, simplify the bottom, and then divide. So from when I graded your assignments about order of operations, those negative numbers raised to a power were probably where most of the mistakes happen. So looking at 25 here, thinking about the top first, 3 minus 7 is negative 4. So I'm going to do what's in those parentheses first. In the bottom, we could go ahead and tidy that up. So absolute value of negative 2. How far is negative 2 from 0? 2 spaces. How far is 1 from 0? Negative 1. 1 space. So that's just going to become 2 plus 1. And then negative 4 to the second power. If you're using the calculator, you need to put it in parentheses like it looks there. It is not negative 16. Okay? It is positive 16 because what we want to be happening is negative 4 times negative 4. So 2 negatives make a positive 16. And for the calculator, if you're using the squared button on the calculator, for it to know that you mean to square the entire negative 4 and not just 4 squared and then make it negative, you need parentheses. So if you're thinking, but my calculator says it's negative 16, It's because you're not telling your calculator to square the whole -4. That's why the parentheses are there. So, positive 16 plus 11, and then I could go ahead and finish up the bottom. So then I have 16 plus 11 is 27, and 27 divided by 3 is 9, of course. So 25 does come out to be a nice whole number. So even though we started out with a fraction for 24 and 25, we still come out at the end with a whole number. I will tell you, you won't see something on your assessment next week where you have nested parentheses or different grouping symbols like in 23. But you might see something like 22. All right, so kind of quickly, 22 and 23, you should get 5 and -15. So you might just write down out to the side 5 and -15. And then you can go back and work those and make sure that you can come up with those answers.
Was that 15 or 16?
Like
negatives?
On number 23, it's -15 with a 5. Tell him. Speak it, girl. So then on 26, this section, we are plugging in. Remember, this is where we're going to plug the numbers in and then follow order of operations. So I'm just going to do, I'll go ahead and do 29 because it also includes a fraction and more steps. And 3 variables that have to be plugged in. So first step is just going to be to replace all of the variables with the numbers. And it may be helpful to put them inside parentheses so that you remember that you're like squaring that entire -4, for example. And then 4 times 1 minus -5. So now I've replaced all the variables with their values. And then we're going to do -4 to, I'm going to work on the top. So I'll do that exponent first. -4 to the second power is positive 16. So 7 times 16 plus 5 is what's left in the top. I'm just going to go ahead and finish the top while we're working on it. So 7 times 16. Someone help me out. What is 7 times 16? 112. So I've got 112 plus 5. So the top becomes 117. And we need to finish off the bottom. Well, 4 times 1, that's easy enough. 4 times 1 is 4. And then hopefully we recognize with this double negative here, that becomes plus plus. So this just becomes 4 plus 5. And 4 plus 5, we can just slide that all the way over here. 4 plus 5 is 9. And then now that we have the fraction down to one number in the top, one number in the bottom, we can divide. If it was not a whole number, then you would just want to go back and see if you could reduce it. But in this case, I believe that goes evenly 13 times. Alright, so let's head over to the top of the next page. I'll give you a few more examples, reminders. Like I said, these should be review. But we've slept since then, and we've done quite a few different things in 2 weeks. So these are just translating. Some of them will be inequalities, equations. Some of them will just be an expression. So this was like the first time we did it, like back on page 12 and 13. So the product of a number and 7, product tells us which operation. Those little babies, they are the product of your love. Product. You multiplied to get those babies. All right? So product is multiplication. So a number in 7 just means we're doing like 7x increased by 3. So plus 3. And in this case, that is not, there's no like is. It's not an equation. It's just an expression. This one has an is. So it is going to be an equation. So this one is going to need an equal sign. And remember, if we have times the difference times the sum, there are going to be parentheses. So 4 times the difference, so we need to stick the difference part inside some parentheses so that the whole thing would get multiplied. Some number, difference means subtract. And then we have an is, so that's my equal. And then negative 30. By the way, for this section, you don't need to solve. Some of them you can't solve. But like this problem, you don't have, it's done now. Because we're not supposed to solve these, we're just translating. All right, so for this section, you're just going to have things like what I'm writing, it's done. So this maximum is like our elevator maximum. So we're just going to say x is less than or equal to 150. And there aren't any other steps. 35 is also an inequality, meaning it's going to use something besides an equal. This one has an is, this is going to have an equal. 31 is going to be like 30, just an expression. So 30 and 31, expressions. 32 and 33, equations. 34, 35, inequalities. But even if they can be solved, you don't need to solve them in this section. And then hopefully the next section seems like, oh yeah, it's been a while since I did that, but that seems pretty easy now because we've had to do it as part of solving equations. So this is just going to be simplifying. So you can't solve. There's no equal sign. We are just simplifying. Remember, we're going to distribute if we need to and combine like terms. So in this entire section, up to 41, we are just distributing if we have parentheses, right? And combining like terms. Remember, to combine like terms has to be the same variable and the same exponent if they had exponents, which none of these do. Or could just be regular numbers. So for instance, 37 has both x's and y's, so they're going to stay separated. 7x, negative 3x. Notice how I kept the sign with whatever follows it. So 7 and negative 3, we've got 4x. Then I've got negative 4y, negative 8y. So negative 12y. And then we have our constants. Negative 8 and positive 12. So plus 4. And then that's done. It's as simplified as possible. If there are parentheses, we need to distribute first before we start trying to combine like terms. So please do not do 18 minus 2 is 16 or something. We're going to distribute first. 18 is just going to hang out and wait. Don't forget about the 18. So negative 2 times 4x and negative 2 times 7. Bring down the 18, bring down the 5x. And then it's a problem more like what I just did on 37, except there's only one variable, only x's, not x's and y's. So we'll put these two together, and we'll put these two together. And we could write negative 3x plus 4. We could write 4 minus 3x. But there does need to be a negative sign with the 3x and a plus or no sign before the 4. And if you see a negative outside of the parentheses, I think most of you have dealt with this enough times now that you remember, think of that as being a 1, and so you're distributing a negative 1 there. (40) and 41 are perimeter questions, but these we're not like finding out the length or the width. We're just writing it in simplest form, so we're just adding up all the way around the figure, combining like terms. When you do number 41, it may be helpful for you to remember that you don't want to just add the 2v plus 13 and the v minus 5. You need to think of that being up here and there being another one of those over here. And then you could write out a big equation, or you could just add around, right? 2 and 2 makes 4, plus 1 makes 6v. And then I got 2 13s and 2 negative 5s. Or if you're doing number 40, you can just go through and combine your x's. If you want to write an equation first, you can, but it's certainly understandable or not a big jump for you to do it without writing it down. And then you get into two-step equations, starting with 42. I don't think that two-step equations are going to be something that gives you a lot of trouble because we've done so many other equations that at some point are two-step equations. I will look at 44 where we can use the reciprocal because that tends to be... Now, if that whole reciprocal idea bugs you, you can also multiply by whatever's in the denominator at the beginning to get rid of the fraction. So, I don't know, some of you might find this, like you might like to do this better. Take a 5, but it's 5 times everything. Kind of like Oprah. You get a 5, and you get a 5, and you get a 5, right? So these 5s would cancel. Then this would become 2x. The 3 would become negative 15. And the negative 17, negative 85. So the numbers in the middle of the problem get bigger, but you immediately get rid of the fraction. So I'm going to work this out both ways just to show you that it does turn out the same. So what we've done in the past, we've added first, since it wasn't a big fraction. And again, this still works. I'm not saying it doesn't work. And then we multiply by the reciprocal, which means we're going to multiply by the flip-flop, right? 5 over 2. And then negative 14 times 5, negative 70 divided by 2, negative 35. So if I got rid of the fraction first by just multiplying by what's in the denominator, I do have to remember everybody gets multiplied. Then I would add 15. 2x is negative 70. Then I would divide by 2, and guess what? We are right back where we just were, negative 35. So if what to do with that fraction, like if you're like, I just would rather get rid of it at the beginning, you can. Sometimes we have to get rid of it at the beginning, like in 47. Because in 47, the x and the negative 17 are in the fraction. We have to do times 3 first. And then that just leaves you one step to finish that one. So if you like that new way, what I did on the left on 44, if you wanted to try that for 46, you would multiply every term by 4. Obviously, 4 times 57, you're going to get kind of a big number in the middle, but with a calculator, that's not a big deal. Just remember the one with the fraction, multiplying by 4 just gets rid of the denominator. It does not create a 12 on the top. The rest of them on that page, those are inequalities. So there's still 2 steps. And then you have your little number line. Again, we've done that even yesterday. We did some problems similar to that. So I don't think that part. For the things about equations, that usually sticks with people because as we've done other things, we've had to use the equations again. Multi-step equations. Swear that my new little saying, I just found that yesterday. That really was new to me. That don't call me after midnight, or after dark actually. Don't call me after dark. And that was, we distribute, which I told you before, simplify on both sides. Combine like terms, that's all part of simplifying, distributing and combining like terms. Move a variable, so if there's a variable on both sides, you're going to want to move one of them to get them on the same side. And then this is add or subtract, and then this will be divide. Technically it could be multiply or divide, but we usually try to get rid of a fraction before we're ever to that. If we have these multi-step, we would not have, none of those have fractions, so they will definitely be divide. Usually proportions, we need a little refresher. Also, if you weren't with us then, we see these, they look really bad, but they don't turn out to be so bad after we've done them. Of course, I guess that I could say that for about anything. I'll do, let's look at number 9. Number 7 is a little bit easier, but what we want to remember here is that cross products are equal. So if we crisscross, they have to be equal. So we cross multiply, distributing as we multiply. So it's like this is inside parentheses. So 5 times y and 5 times negative 5. The equal goes in the middle, then 3 times y and 3 times negative 7. So I'm multiplying the diagonals, and then once I've multiplied those diagonals, then it becomes a multi-step equation. There isn't any distributing or combining like terms to do. I need to move a variable, so I'm going to subtract that 3y. And then we've got a 2-step equation, so I'll add 25. And then, of course, last step, we'll divide by 2. So cross multiply. Make sure you distribute as you do it. So 6 times this. And then equals in the middle. And then cross multiply the other direction. So always think of the number that's by itself and then go like it's kind of on the outside and I'm distributing, and then go left to right so that this is 4n minus 10. You don't want to put 10 minus 4n because then the negative's with the wrong thing. And then from there, not so bad. So once you do that first step, those problems are much more manageable than they initially look. Again, we're going to spend some more time reviewing on Monday. And so instead of talking at you, I'm going to give you a chance to go through and work on some of those that I've given you some examples. Topic 6, compound inequalities. That's what we just did yesterday. And a few multi-step inequalities. Topic 4 on page 50 is where you're getting a variable by itself, where we're rearranging things, like we did, I think that was Tuesday. Okay, so as you're working, please, if I haven't stopped by, please stop me and I will